Hi, David Ellenstein here, Artistic Director of North Coast Repertory Theater. Thank you for tuning in today to our theater conversations. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. That would help us out a lot. Thank you. Hello, it's my pleasure to be joined today by my dear friend James Sutorius for a theater conversation. Hi, James.
Hello, David.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Good to see you. It's been too long. Although I must say, I see you all the time, every week, every few days in your box. And all these, these wonderful interviews that you're doing from Richard Dreyfuss, from Linda Pearl, the designers the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so, it's just a wonderful idea that you had. And you hear people talking about the love they have for this work and the passion they have. And we're all in this together and we're all part of, North Coast Rep. And it just brings us all, it's a very good feeling. And plus you look good too. So that's, it's all right.
Well, that's the whole point.
Your hair is getting longer too, though.
And you like the
I know, I would have my hat off. I would have my hat off, but it's too scary. With my hat off, but no, congratulate. They're great. Those interviews.
Oh, well, thank you.
I don't know why you're doing this one. I have no idea, but this is...
I think people might be interested.
Yeah, maybe.
So, you've been an actor for a long time, for most of your life. And how did that start? How did you become what made you go into acting?
Yeah, well, it wasn't because, a lot of people, I think they've said with the interviews, 4 or 5, 6 years old, I want to be an actor. I want to sing and dance. No, that's not me at all. I was like your kids. I was basketball, I was baseball in high school. I was football until the first tryout or the first day of practice. And we had one-on-one and somebody hit me and that was it. I was done. No more football. And so it was basketball and it was baseball was my real love. But then, it's odd how it all, somewhere there was something in me, David, that I wasn't even aware of that. I went to Wheaton High School and where Bob Woodward, in Illinois.
In Illinois, okay.
Yeah, and my junior year, all of a sudden, I find myself at the varsity show with hundreds of people, and I'm sitting on a stool, and I'm doing Shelley Berman. And I'm going, hello, midget, it's me, your father, and I'm doing. I don't know where that came from, but I'm doing Shelley Berman. And then I did it my senior year, and then they put me in. In high school, I had which so many act, James Earl Jones, actually Joe Biden has this, a bit of a stutter, which never goes away. So they put me with a speech therapist, and he put me in, you're going to be in a play. And it was The Desperate Hours. Is that a play? The Desperate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was the play I did. And I heard that, I forget who I played, but there was applause at the end. And then I said, this is really nice. And so I started thinking about it. And then my mom said, well, you're going to have a teacher then. So Wheaton College, which was there was a teacher named Ed Hollins who introduced me to Shakespeare and said, we're going to do this. You're going to learn Shakespeare. And by the way, whose birthday is it today? Well, today is Shakespeare's birthday.
Right. This is not the day that this is showing, but yes, today, the day we're taping.
Actually is the day we're taping is actually, Shakespeare's birthday. So he said, okay, we have to change your breathing to diaphragmatic and the Shakespeare, and we're going to do it all with Hamlet. So it was all Hamlet, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, was the one I did over. I just fell in love with Shakespeare and Hamlet. And then I went to Illinois Wesleyan University and majored in speech and drama. So it just happened. But Hamlet was such a part of my life. And my junior year in college, they said, we're going to do Hamlet. And I said, oh my. I found out later that he did it knowing that I was going to do it, the professor, John Ficca. But I was just the audition and getting it, and then you go and you walk and you see the list, I remember it was snowing, it's cold, and I walked in the theater door, and there your heart is pounding, and there's the list, and it was James Sutorius, Hamlet. And it was just one of those moments you never, and so I played it. I played it like Richard Burton, basically, because I loved Richard Burton, back there, Elizabeth, and to be or not to be.
And did you drink as much?
Then I did it a few more times.
Did you drink?
Did I drink? Yeah.
Drink.
No, but I had this thing for Richard Burton. And then I saw him in 1964. with my college roommate. I went to New York first time and saw Richard Burton on Broadway doing Hamlet.
Directed by John Gielgud.
John Gielgud and George Rose was in it. And I remember the one day was a matinee, and when we waited afterwards, hundreds of people and the horses back then waiting in the police, and out comes Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton and Sammy Davis Jr. So there they were, and that was actually more memorable than the Hamlet, I think. The Hamlet, not a great Hamlet, but anyway. So so then it was school, and then it was on to acting school, and I'm now totally, sold over. This is all I want to do. The passion of it, which I guess has never gone away. I don't know, crazy. But then acting school in Michigan, it was called the Academy of Dramatic Art, which was based on RADA, the Royal Academy in London. They brought it over here, John Fernald. And at Meadowbrook, and I know you've worked at Meadowbrook.
I have.
And Meadowbrook was there then, so they were connected to Meadowbrook. And so I was there I was in the first class. So being in the first class, you got more teachers than there were, so it was all classic training. Yeah. So I ended up by acting school at Meadowbrook, the Academy of Dramatic Art. And then I went on to the Oslo in Florida, and 2 years doing rep, which was my first professional job, which was amazing. And then did Marchbanks. The first show I did was Marchbanks in Canada.
Wow, great part.
Yeah, it's great. And then played some really nice parts down there.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in for a second. So my audience knows you from doing The Father, which you won the San Diego Critics Award for, which is not a strange thing for you since you had already won it for playing George and Virginia Woolf at the Old Globe and for playing Ricky Roma in...
No, playing actually is in Lincoln-esque.
Lincoln-esque.
Lincoln-esque down there, playing two parts. And
that's what you won the award for?
I won it for George and Virginia Woolf. Then
Yes.
I won Best Supporting Actor for Lincoln-esque by James
I see.
Sutorius.
And then you won Best Actor again for The Father.
And then The Father, and I was nominated for Glenn Ross at La Jolla.
Right.
But I didn't win. So but I still came back to San Diego. So,
and you were awesome in The Sunshine Boys for us as well. So, but you've done tons and tons of other stuff. You've done theater, you've done film, you've done voiceover. Tell us that funny story about your voiceover career.
Well, that's part of what I was saying. I went to New York then from the Oslo, and just beginning as a kid and living in Chelsea. So I'm in Chelsea, and I'm just starting, and I'm struggling, and I get an agent, and now what am I going to do? Am I going to have, I'm going to be driving a cab or a bartender and just try auditioning? And I got an agent quickly, which was great. And then they said, well, I kind of like your voice. They have this thing called voiceovers that they do, and for commercials. And I said, I don't know what that is. What's a voiceover? Well, just go in there. This is thing for spaghetti sauce, and you should go in there and read for this. So I went in there, and I read. I did the audition for this. I won't say what it is now. And then I did it, and I got this. And then for the next 15, 16 years, pure luck, I was the voice of ragu spaghetti sauce. And I just happened to have, I thought you might ask, I have a jar that I bought like a month ago and here it was. And so I would go, ragu spaghetti sauce, that's Italian.
And I bet a few people remember that.
Well, they don't do it. Then I would say old world style. And my mom would always go into the grocery store and get every jar in there. She'd get all the ragu because she thought that I would get more money with the residuals. So.
Nowadays, when a lot of food is good and expensive, it's nice to find something that's just plain good. Pasta with ragu old world style spaghetti sauce. The good and hearty hot meal you can serve your family often without using up your whole food budget. That's Italian.
That's Italian.
Ragu spaghetti sauce. That's Italian.
Yeah, so I did the ragu, and then so that allowed me to, just relax a bit, I guess, and then auditioning, and then off to regional theaters a bit. But then came the first Broadway show, which was intriguing. It was called The Changing Room, about a rugby team by David Story, and wonderful actors in it. John Lithgow was the beginning of his career, and George Hearn, and wonderful cast. But it was interesting. The first night, opening night, my parents are in the audience. I'm glad it wasn't the first row. And so I walk in, and I walk downstage, left right down there in the very front, and a rugby team, and I take off all my clothes. And this is my Broadway debut, is with all these other guys. You know, it wasn't Oh Calcutta, but it was me. And it was not, you know, it's interesting, sort of having fun with it, but it was very liberating in a way. There was nothing about it that was strange or odd or stuff. You just came in and take off your clothes, put on your uniform, and then at the end of the show, you come and you take your uniform off again, and you're naked again, and put on your clothes. Anyway.
And so is this a habit you now practice in your life when you go out in public?
I do it all the time. You see, I'm here alone.
I just wanted to make sure.
You see the top half of me here? See, this is, you don't want to go. You don't want to zoom down with this thing. This is all. No, so that was the New York, and it was all, again, as I say, it just allowed me the residuals and stuff from, but it was all.
And you also had a TV series of your own for a while.
Well, that was such a gift too. I mean, you're in New York, and I'm going along. I guess it was like 78 or 79, and it was James Naughton. You know the name James Naughton?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, it was between James Naughton and myself, and it was called. Everybody goes, what? It was called the Andros Targets, Andros, and I was Mike Andros, and it was James and I got it, and I was doing actual at the Cherry Lane. CBS came down. I was doing a Sexual Perversity in Chicago. David Mamet with Peter Riegert, and with Cherry Lane. It was just great. And they came down, and all these people, and then all of a sudden they gave it to me. And I had never had a lot of TV experience at all, you know, really, maybe a Kojak or something. And so so it was just wonderful. I mean, there was no other show in New York then. It was my show. I was Mike Andros, New York Forum, and every show, I mean, it was Patti LuPone and Richard Kiley, and the first one was F. Murray Abe. Every show had this star, and Danny Aiello, and Olympia Dukakis, George Rose. It just went on and on because it was the only show in New York. So I had all this with all these wonderful actors doing the Andros Targets, and it was bitter cold when we did it. So it was outside, and it was a wonderful experience. And as you can see, I've had many leads in series since, but it was. But it's what took me to California in a way. Then I started doing after that, again, which was a wonderful experience doing the Andros Targets. But then in LA, then I started doing a lot of TV then, how I made my living, a lot of movies of the week back then, with wonderful actors, you know, Burt Lancaster and Peter Falk and James Garner. We did a huge miniseries called Space. 13 hours.
You know, I was in that. I was in that too.
No.
Yes. I was on with James Garner and David Duke.
Yeah, and Harry Hamlin.
Right.
Harry Hamlin. You really?
Joe Sargent directed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And James, I mean, it was not successful, but I really got to know James Garner, and he was great. He's great. He was like me, a real curmudgeon and stuff, but you loved him. But he could never get my name, David. Sutorius was too much. So he used to always say, hey, Superfluous, come over here, Superfluous. And my mom and dad came on the set, and it was Mr. and Mrs. Superfluous, come over here. I want to.
That's nice.
But he was, so then I was in LA doing, you know, for 20 years doing a lot of TV.
Well, something that I discovered later, after we were working on The Father, that I had seen you in a play that I actually ended up directing another production of later on, but a play called Conversations with My Father.
Did you direct it? Really?
Herb Gardner, and you were one of the leading. Judd Hirsch was in it, and you were basically the other lead in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it was you when we first started working together that I had seen do that play.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that Tony Shalhoub opened it, and Tony, and then I was very close to Dan Sullivan, who directed it, and Dan and Tony. I think he left to do Monk. I think was what it probably was. But again, being honest, you know, I mean, it was great because and my folks were alive at this point. On the marquee, it was Judd Hirsch, and then somebody else, and then Tony Shalhoub, and then Conversations with My Father. And so when I took over, I kept that same place. So I had my name above the title on a marquee, and my folks got to see that. And it was just, and it was wonderful working with, it was great. I did it for a long time. And then Jim Belushi took over.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then it closed.
Well, we won't go any farther than
No,
that.
but it was great working with Judd. We became very good friends, and I loved Herb Gardner.
Yeah.
And Dan Sullivan.
It's a really good
Where
place.
where,
A little unwieldy. I did it up in Portland at the Portland Repertory Theater.
Oh, wow.
In
In
Maine.
Maine.
Later.
In Maine. The one in Maine?
No. This is
The one
Portland, Oregon.
in Oregon. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, Zaretsky, the Russian character in
That's the one. Yeah. Whoever played that has his name above the title too.
My dad played that when I directed it.
Wow.
So I got to direct my dad in that.
Wow. And you and I were in the space. The
Space
bomb.
Teacher, James Michener.
James Michener. Wow. Isn't that? I just love. This is what I love about this business. You could just talk about these connections all the time.
I know.
And when I just did Sunshine Boys with
Lenny Wolpe.
With Lenny Wolpe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people which was such a wonderful experience, and so many people that together. But anyway, it's
So James, I've asked a number of people I've been talking to on this question, but I want to ask you too. You've worked in movies, and you've worked on television, and you've done voiceovers, and you've done live theater. You've done basically all the mediums. Yeah, they're ragu. Say it again. That's Italian.
Ragu spaghetti sauce. That's Italian.
No residuals for this, though.
No,
Ragu might send you something.
It's a long time. Yeah, ragu.
But I wanted to ask you, what's the satisfaction? What's your first love? What's the difference? What does it do? What does each of those things do for you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't find a huge difference. I know some people you've talked to. There's a camera and it's right there, and you just adapt to that right there. But if I'm going to talk about what I really love to do is that I am a man of the theater, and it all started at Wheaton College with Ed Hollitz from Shakespeare, and it never went away. I mean, I love doing television, mainly more television movies of the week than films, but I am a man of the theater, and it's what I love more than anything. And and what I'm missing now is the assembly of people gathering, because the theater is about people getting together and gathering. You can do it online and do readings and stuff. I mean, people do these, plays and stuff, but it's about that audience that's there, and it's alive, and it's just, and you're out there on the tightrope, and then and there's no safety net. But to answer you, I never found it a huge difference. I mean, you just adapt. I mean, when the camera, it's your close up, I don't know. I just instinctively knew how to do it. It wasn't something that I made a huge adjustment, about. I just, but the theater is, and now I'm doing so much theater and not so much TV, that that's what I think my passion.
Well, it actually doesn't surprise me that you're saying this after working with you on The Father, because even though that was a theater production, you could have stuck a camera doing a close-up on you at any time during that show, and it would have not felt too big, not felt like too much. It would have felt like the right thing, and it worked in the theater, and it would have worked on film too, because it was, you as an actor have that sense of your reality that never goes away, which is very admirable.
Let me just talk about The Father you gave me a gift. I mean, that was something that it's going to be with me forever. That was you don't get these kind of parts in these plays that often. And you saw me doing it, and I was in Connecticut doing Crucible, Danforth, and you sent the script and offered it to me, and I read it, and then I just had to do it. That process for The Father, what you gave me, and I think I said it in the speech when you won Best Director for the year, by the way, and that, you trusted me. And it's a gift that when you give an actor that trust and the confidence it gave me, that I knew that I was in safe hands, and that I could go wherever I wanted, and you would guide me and say this or that, no, James, and this. But it was just one of those experiences that doesn't happen very often, and it's a gift. And now we've become dear friends.
I just kept saying, oh my gosh, am I lucky I've got him?
Well, I was kept saying, just the opposite. And we had a wonderful chemistry with the cast, with everybody, and Jackie, who works on. I was just talking to Robin the other day, and
oh, good,
Sean, and but no, I just can't. It was, and the audiences when it was over. I mean, it's a tough play, but there was a lot of humor. But it's such a subject that touches everybody. It touches everybody,
Right.
and you walk out of the theater, and winning the award was a great honor, and it was fun. But what I loved most of all was getting up there every night and doing it, just doing the play and seeing the way people would react. And you walk out of the theater and you see that they're so moved. And I mean, it doesn't happen very often, It doesn't.
So James, we're talking about all this history, and right now we're stuck. We can't do anything, right? Because of the coronavirus, we're all stuck and we can't do theater, but we do have a future. And in the future, I'm happy to say, James Sutorius is going to be coming back to North Coast Rep. You want to talk a little bit about?
No, I'm doing this play. It's called Trying, and maybe it's fortuitous. I don't even want to be pessimistic, but we're not doing it until next year.
Right.
And I assume everything will be back normal by next year.
We sure hope so.
Sure hope so. But the entertainment world and gathering in a theater or a movie theater, that's rough. People.
I know. Well, we got to figure it out.
We got to figure it out.
I think the world is working on it because we can't let it go. So
no, we can't. We have to get it back. And so in the meantime,
talk about the play we're going to do a little.
Well, it's a play. It's written by Joanna Glass, and it's a play about a man that I didn't know about. His name is Francis Biddle, and he was the Solicitor General, Attorney General for Franklin Roosevelt, 1941 to 45, and the play. He's in the last years of his life, and he's writing his memoir, and he needs a secretary. So he hires, and Joanna Glass, who wrote this play, was his actual secretary in 1967, and she was 25, and he's much older, and the play is about their journey together, and where in the beginning I'm perfect for this. He's very difficult, and he's very the curmudgeon. He's all but where this is going to go in a way, which is a wonderful thing to see it unravel. That they will take this journey together, the older, the younger, and what they will learn from each other. It's not so much about, which is fine, about history. Although he was the chief American judge at the Nuremberg trials, and he also was, which he regretted and speaks a bit about in the play. Behind the Japanese internment, and which he has great regrets. But the play is more about this relationship and how they grow together and become these, whatever, I don't want to give too much away, but it's their journey. And that's what it's really about, is this man in the last years, and she's so young, and what they learn from each other. And it's like The Father. It's very funny. It's very funny. And it's just, I look at it all the time. I mean, I probably know half of it already, but it's just great to see how they grow together. And it's very moving. It's very moving at the end. And I mean, is that sort of? I mean, you're not directing it. Is that sort of?
No, I'm not directing, but when I picked this play for the season, I knew I had to have the right actor for that part, or you just are not going to make it with this play. And so when you were interested and available, it really made me happy that we were doing it.
Yeah, and I must say that a friend of mine's directing it. Nikki Dukas is going to be directing it, who I know and have worked with, and that's great. And we'll find the girl. And is there anything else you want to say about the play? I mean, is that sort of?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece. I just it's huge. It's huge. That's why I'm starting to work on it now.
It's huge for you, but small for the audience.
Yeah, and again, it's very intimate. It's perfect, like The Father. It's that your theater is perfect for it. It's just perfect, and it's so it's wonderful. So I just spend my time here walking around my house doing Shakespeare and stuff like that. I do. I walk around out.
And they don't call the loony bin for you?
Well, there was a cop car here the other day. But this is what I pick up Virginia Woolf, and I just go back and I pick up The Father, and this is how I spend I do it out loud again.
That's great.
And I say, what was David thinking? Why did he have me do? No, I don't.
Well, thank you so much for doing this and sharing a little bit about you with the audience at North Coast Rep, because they've seen you on stage and they know what a brilliant actor you are, but they don't know how much fun you are as a person, which I'm lucky enough to know.
Well, we have a great relationship, and I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to see you out of the box. Indeed. And we'll get back together, and we all will gather again.
I look forward. Thank
Yeah,
you,
David.
James.
Thank
See
you
soon.
very much, David.